Hey guys, I recently posted an article on my Facebook page about ISIS threatening some attacks during Christmas time in Europe and potentially the United States. And one of the hashtags I put at the bottom there was hard to kill. I got a couple comments below that said, what are some easy ways that any person can be hard to kill? So I wanted to address that. And in full disclosure, I Googled that just because I thought, hey, it might be easier to share an article or a video from somebody out there that is a veritable expert. There's a lot of people out there that are smarter than me about this topic, but the unfortunate thing that I found was the top 4 hits from my Google search about hard to kill were strength training articles about how to train in the gym or using weights or other things to be hard to kill. Now, I'm not knocking that. Don't hear me say that. Should you strength train? Yes. Is that a part of it? Yes. And that's one of the points that I'll talk about later for my 5 points of how to be hard to kill. But that's really missing the mark, rather. It's missing the mark on being hard to kill. It's so much more than that. And the reason why I wanted to give some 5 easy steps is that some of the people that were hitting me up about some ways to be hard to kill are they're moms of 3 kids. They're full-time parents. They're older folks. They're people that have no prior military or law enforcement training. A lot of the guys that are putting hard to kill kind of stuff out there are focused so much on this sort of tactical mindset all the time, where you got to be a former military operator to be hard to kill. And I don't think that's the case. I think that every person out there can take a few easy steps to being harder to kill. So I'm going to give you 5 easy steps that I think anybody can do. All right. So step number 1 is awareness. You got to be aware. A buzzword that we hear in sort of the military, law enforcement community is situational awareness. That is part of it for sure. You should be aware of your surroundings at all times. You should not be that person that's constantly in your cell phone, looking around, not paying attention, earphones on while you're walking around in public, completely oblivious to the rest of the world. We call that condition white. Condition white is a bad spot to be in. That means you're totally clueless. You are such an easy target when you're at condition white. All right, so you want to be aware of not just your immediate surroundings, but just be aware of what's going on in general in society. So one thing I would say is, less sports statistics memorization. You don't need to memorize those sports stats. Shoot, you might not even need to watch a full football game. But take a few minutes each day to read up on a little bit of current events. Now, you don't have to be a geopolitical expert to do this, but just a few minutes each day. Maybe instead of checking your Facebook posts or homepage for 30 minutes when you wake up, instead take 10-15 minutes to read some news about what's going on currently. All right, so that would be step number 1, is just maintain awareness. Step number 2 kind of piggybacks off of being aware, and that's having a plan to do something when you do notice that something is alarming, right? You see something because you are aware, something that kind of makes your spidey senses stand up a little bit, and you need to have a plan to react accordingly. Now, this doesn't have to be some kind of written out, super expansive plan. This could just be kind of what-ifing or rehearsing scenarios in your head. All right, it could be something as simple as, I'm at the grocery store. What happens if I'm in the grocery store and I hear shots fired coming from the front? Or I'm standing at the counter at the checkout and I see 2 people start to get in a fight and one of them draws a weapon, right? So I could be rehearsing some things in my head. Now, that doesn't mean I need to be completely immersed in a daydream where I'm out in public thinking about all these different scenarios that are going to happen, because then I'm kind of putting myself back into condition white. But I think some simple planning and rehearsal in your head. I think part of that too is if you have a family or you have loved ones around you, bring them in on that plan, especially kids. Kids are old enough for the most part, and they understand enough things to, if you give them some basic instructions, they can follow that. So your family should be part of your team, so to speak. And if you have a plan in place, they should know what that plan is. And you should talk to your kids about how you think you might react in a situation like this, and how they can also react and respond, so that they can be part of the solution and not part of the problem for you, right? The third step is get some training. Now, I'm not talking about you got to go out there and spend a week of your vacation time and $5,000 at a one of the top line firearms and tactical training venues. Now, if you can do that and you want to do that, awesome. I definitely would support you on that. But I'm talking about very basic training. I'm talking about learn how to stop some major bleeding, learn how to do CPR, learn some first aid. All that stuff can be knocked out at from local vendors for either free or a few bucks, right? Contact your local emergency management agency, contact your local Red Cross, and ask them if they've got first aid training, CPR training, and there's a lot of those trainings that are available for kids. Again, bring your kids into the loop on this. If you know how to stop major bleeding, you are really ahead of the game, because what we've seen with a lot of these case studies is that especially when there's a mass kind of a violent event like a mass shooting or an explosion, there are so many injuries that it overwhelms the first responders' ability, not only their ability and their numbers, but also their equipment. So you can be part of the solution by helping to stop bleeding and save people's lives, maybe even yourself. If it came down to it. So that's number 3 is training. Number 4 is be fit. I already talked about it in kind of the intro here, but you should be fit. There's no excuse for probably 98% of all Americans to not be physically fit for the most part. Now I know there's injuries, and I'll probably get people in the comments to talk about injuries or illnesses or things like that. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying that is if you are a generally healthy adult and you have mobility in most of your limbs, there's not a reason, there's not very many good reasons for you to not train for some type of fitness. Now, I'm not talking you have to be a top competitor at the CrossFit Games or a power lifter or a marathon runner. I'm talking about just get in the gym, do a little bit of work a few days a week, or set up a home gym, do a little bit of work there. There's a number of different programs out there. Pick one that works for you, works for your schedule, and do it. Be fit. And the reason why I say you got to be fit is we typically do one of 3 things in some type of high threat environment or high threat situation. We can fight, we can flee, or we can freeze, right? You've often heard fight or flight, but there is a third one in there, and that's freeze. You don't want to be that person that's frozen in the headlights, hence going back to the training, right? Get some training so you won't freeze. So then that training basically leaves you with 2 options, fight or flight, or fight or flee. You need to be fit enough to fight, to defend yourself, to defend your family, to defend innocent persons that are standing near you, all right? And if it's not fight, if that's not the option, and it's not always the best option to fight, it might be to flee, it might be to get out of there. Again, you've got to be fit enough to not maybe just carry yourself out or get yourself out, but maybe you've got family members, maybe you have friends, there's other people that you might have to carry or drag to a point of safety, all right? So get fit. And the last thing is number 5 is mindset. You might think it's kind of redundant to point number 1, awareness, but not quite. What I mean by mindset is a couple of things. First and foremost, come to grips with the reality that this is the new normal in not just Europe, but in America. There will be more attacks. I'm not a doomsday type of person, but I am just encouraging you to face the realities that there are bad people out there, whether it's ISIS, whether it's lone wolf attacks in the United States, whether it's a crazy person that wants to shoot up a school, 2 people that get in a fight in front of you and you just happen to be collateral damage. This stuff happens. It's a reality. So you need to first and foremost wrap your mind around that. That's mindset. Number 2 is do you have what it takes to make yourself hard to kill so that if something does happen, you can react, all right? Maybe that means using violence on somebody else, right? Have you thought it through enough? Are you capable? Can you psychologically and physiologically use violence on another person, right? So having a mindset to not bury your head in the sand and recognize that there are threats out there and that you may be called upon, whether you want to or not, to be in that situation and to respond. It's unfortunate the thing that happened in Las Vegas where 58 people were murdered, but we can't continue to bury our heads in the sand. Those people probably did not wake up that morning thinking that was going to be their last day on this earth, their last day with their loved ones. But that is unfortunately a harsh reality. Now you notice in none of my 5 points was carry a gun and know how to use it. Now, here's my caveat on that. Would I recommend or suggest you carry a gun? Absolutely. I'm a proponent of your right to conceal and carry a firearm. Now, I would say get training. You know, if you have to shoot a handful of rounds at a paper target from 7 meters to pass your qualification to get your CCDW license or your CCW license, that's not going to cut it. All right. You need to get legitimate training to learn how to actually use that firearm in multiple types of scenarios, right? So get training, number one. Number two, the reason why I didn't say you need to be able to carry a firearm is because there are so many venues out there where you may not legally be allowed to carry a firearm, which ironically are venues that are easy targets. So sports stadiums, potentially hospitals, schools, those types of places where most folks, at least currently as of the time I'm making this video, cannot carry weapons there, but they're a place with thousands of people that are targets. So don't rely on a firearm as a crutch. Your mindset is so much more than that. There are many things that you can use as a weapon, and when it comes down to it, in a very close quarter situation, a firearm might not be the best option anyway. So can you carry one? Should you carry one? I would recommend those things within the law and get some training, but that is not a requirement for you to be hard to kill. And I think in one of my posts I put the word becoming hard to kill. The reason why I say becoming is because this is a process. If you go through training one time, that doesn't mean that your skills won't get rusty. You should continue to do that. It doesn't mean, hey, I have arrived. I am a tactical operator because I went through a week-long training course. No, it means you are better prepared, but it also means that now you have a responsibility, in my mind, to continue to maintain those skills. So always be out there practicing, always maintain, always search for better methods, more knowledge. If you guys are interested in any kind of vendors out there, there are a number of vendors that offer a lot of training, and I'd be happy to share some of those with you. But if you are going to get training, definitely check out the comments, get recommendations from a reputable source on that training, and make yourself better. Become a hard target, become hard to kill. All right, take care, y'all.